The virtual DOM. Two of the problems React was designed to solve was that DOM manipulation can be slow and differences between browsers can make web development hard. These problems are solved in React by the virtual DOM. So just what is the virtual DOM? In React we have a JSX React element, and this corresponds to an actual element in the browser's DOM. If you don't know already, DOM stands for Document Object Model, and it is the way the browser internally represents all elements on a web page. Making changes to these is slow because each time they change, these changes have to be represented by drawing elements to the screen, which is a slow operation. Additionally, DOM objects contain a lot of information, they're quite big objects, so updating them is generally just slow. One or two operations like this are fine, but modern UIs can require many in a short space of time. This can then cause the browser to become slow and unresponsive, and the redrawing of the screen may be visibly slow and so jarring to the user, just not a good experience. For every real element in the DOM, React has what we will refer to as a virtual element, which it corresponds to. This will just be some kind of object that represents the real DOM element. It is simpler and more lightweight than the DOM element it represents, and since it's just a simple object, doesn't trigger expensive graphical operations like drawing to the screen when altered. When you re-render one of your components, some or all of the React elements it renders may need to change. These changes will not be made directly to the elements in the browser's DOM. Instead, React will make the changes in the virtual DOM. There is then a DOM diffing algorithm which works out the differences in the virtual DOM between the last render and the current render. These changes are what need to be changed in the browser's DOM in order to show the changes to the user. React will then apply these changes to the browser's DOM. This is faster because this way React makes only the minimum required changes to the browser's DOM. Without the virtual DOM, React would have to do one of two things. Firstly, it could remove and recreate all the elements from scratch. If your component contains 100 elements and you alter just one of them in a given render, you're going to be removing and recreating all 100 elements, and this would be madness for such a small change and could be very slow. Alternatively, it would have to read all the elements for your component from the DOM, work out the difference, then apply it back to the DOM. Reading so many elements would also be slow compared to just using the virtual DOM method. In addition to this, React will also optimize the way it goes about doing the updates to the DOM based on the browser it's running on, as different browsers have different levels of performance on different operations. In addition to this, there are still some differences in the DOM API between browsers, which means doing some things that work one way in one browser need to be done a different way on another browser. Although the differences aren't as pronounced as they were years ago, this can still lead to developer frustration. The problem used to be solved by the likes of jQuery. jQuery gave developers one API across all browsers, but the API was implemented differently on a per-browser basis in order to abstract away these differences from the developer. With React, developers don't interact with the DOM directly, React does it for them. This means they don't need to worry about browser differences when manipulating the DOM. React does it in the correct way for each individual browser.